Canada has been accepting immigrants for a long time now. And by long time, I mean around 100 years. Look at this graph. This clearly shows immigration started way back in the 1850s, which means Canadians have had immigration for a long time now. But fast forward to today, we know that it is not the case anymore. There's a strong feeling among many Canadians that immigration has ruined the country. So after embracing immigration for so many decades and hating it, what really went wrong? Well, to understand the whole situation, we need to go back a bit and look at when immigration really began. We need to go back to the 1800s. At that point, Canada had just become its own country through the Constitution Act. This was huge for Canada. Under the Constitution Act, provinces united to form one government for the very first time and gained control of its own economy. But as things were progressing, there was a major problem. Canada's economy during that point was reliant on revenue generated from natural resources. The main sources were fish, lumber, and the UR trade. And the problem was that they were not sustainable for the future. Fishing was vulnerable to overfishing, lumber wasn't scalable for the future, and the fur trade was already in decline. Canada really needed to diversify quickly. And luckily, the solution was right there. Farming. Canada had a huge amount of land, like too much land, and it was perfect for farming. Globally, the demand for food was increasing as civilization was expanding. This was the perfect tool to grow Canada's economy. But the challenge was that Canada's population was too low. There weren't enough people to farm the land, and that is where immigration began. It was the perfect solution as it allowed Canada to bring in people from Europe to help farm the land and grow its economy. And so Canada launched one of the biggest immigration campaigns that the world had ever seen. Canada majorly targeted people in Europe because things weren't going too well there. There was a lot of political instability and overcrowding in major cities. Canada was the perfect answer to most of their problems. So in the early 1900s, thousands of Europeans arrived in Canada as immigrants. They were mostly Germans, Ukrainians, Poles, Russians, and Scandinavians. As they came to Canada, they were given a piece of land as long as they agreed to stay and farm it for a few years. And over time, Canada's vast lands transformed and it became a booming economy. And it was immigration that helped Canada achieve that. But everything wasn't sunshine and roses. You see, Canada only allowed immigrants from white European countries to come in, and disallowed colored immigrants from other countries like Africa and South Asia. This was done to keep Canada a white Christian nation. There were many laws that were passed at that time that helped achieve that. For example, there was the Chinese head tax of 1885. This tax was imposed on any Chinese worker that entered the country. At first, it was $50, then $100, then $500, equivalent to 2 years' wages at the time. And when this wasn't enough, Canada also passed the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1923, which banned all Chinese immigration for almost 24 years. There were many other laws like these that pretty discriminatory, but as time passed, Canada faced a lot of external pressure to get rid of these policies if it wanted to be seen as a modern developing nation. And this is when the Canadian government introduced the points-based immigration system, a system that would bring in immigrants based on merit and not the color of their skin. So, as the years passed, Canada saw a much diverse wave of immigrants come into the country and bring their cultural. And big cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal transformed into diverse, multicultural hubs. And this is how a country that had pretty racist immigration laws became one that embraced it and better yet thrived on it. So now that we understand the history of immigration and how it started, let's talk a bit about where things are today and why are Canadians really upset. Well, for starters, one thing you need to understand is why does Canada bring in immigrants today? It doesn't really have a farming problem anymore. The real reason is that the Canadian population is aging, which means that in the coming years, more and more people will be retiring and entering the job market. And while that is not bad in itself, what's bad is as the number of people retiring grows and the number of people working decreases, it will put more strain on the government budget to pay pensions and support government-funded programs like healthcare for everyone. So in order to keep things stable, Canada consistently needs new people coming in from outside and paying taxes and growing the economy. But here's the challenge. Immigration really has to be approached carefully. As it happens too slowly, the economy can die. But if it happens too quickly, it can lead to housing and other shortages. And that's what's causing panic among Canadians. The Trudeau government let too many people in the name of diversity. In the 2022 to 2024 Immigration Levels Plan, the government aimed to welcome 431,645 new permanent residents in 2022, 447,055 in 2023, 451,000 in 2024, which was a pretty aggressive plan to begin with. And Canada is facing a housing shortage, healthcare facilities are collapsing, And the systems are failing. Canadians may be calling for an overhaul and a complete stop to immigration. But that's not sustainable as Canada needs to bring in people to support its funding programs. Now, even though the government has already scaled back all immediate immigration plans, it will take some years to make things stable. Ultimately, Mike Carney is going to have to approach immigration very carefully so it doesn't happen again and Canada can grow slowly and steadily. And Canadians will have to understand that while they can be racist towards immigrants that are coming in and occupying housing and crowding cities, it's the only sustainable way to keep their economy going.